Today, politics. Oh, or is it football? Well, in either case, you're going to get both. Here on Political Brew, Phil Harriman's thinking of both things at once, and that's only fair.
I can't wait.
John Richardson, kind of trying to keep it subtle, doesn't want to be too much of a homer. Doesn't bother me, but
subtleness. Look at your tie.
that's what I'm saying. You know, he's the voice of reason here.
But I can't outdo you, Phil. Today he has this jersey on, but on the back, which I've noticed, Tom Brady actually signed this jersey.
Yeah.
Congrats.
All right. Well, that's another matter. We can talk about it all day, but they won't pay us then.
Right.
So in the world of politics, Representative Seth Berry this week proposed a bill to force a consumer takeover of Central Maine Power and Emera. Now, we're talking about companies with an estimated worth of about $4 billion combined. He says ratepayers would save because there'd be less money sent out of state, paying interest payments. This kind out of the blue. I recognize that a lot of people are unhappy with CMP right now. Phil, is this a realistic proposal?
I hope it's not. This is not the direction the Maine legislature should be going in, that says to private business, if we don't like the way you're doing business, we're going to take over your business. I don't think that's going to work.
But they are regulated utilities, so it could happen.
And it could. And this is why, when you have a monopoly, as the utility companies are, why they're regulated, so that we can air our grievances and get these problems fixed. CMP's just had one after the other. They're trying to get a transmission line through the wilderness that's controversial. They can't get their billing systems in a fashion that ratepayers feel like it's been fair to them, and this is their recourse, and this is why you see sorts of proposals like Seth Berry has put forward.
John, is this for real?
I think for Seth Berry it's quite real, and I think with some people within the caucus it's quite real as well. But to Phil's point and everything he said, I totally agree with, and that is you can't even get anybody on the phone to answer your questions. CMP has some serious customer relations problems. That, in my opinion, is what's driving this particular bill. Does this bill have a reasonable chance of getting through? In other words, more likely than not? Of course not. The full faith and credit of the state of Maine would have to be put in play, and then some, affecting, I think, our bond rating and whatnot, if in fact we were to bond in order to buy and purchase this.
That's an enormous
It's an enormous undertaking, but I do think what Seth Berry is trying to do, and I applaud him for this, is bring further attention to CMP and other utilities when they are not acting in the best interest of the public.
Another bill that was proposed and then quickly withdrawn, probably wisely, was mandatory snow tires. It slid off the legislative highway this week. It's hardly the only idea that bubbles up early in the session that won't get traction, right, John? I mean, and is that a problem for the legislature? It's not that the idea of safety and promoting safety is not a good idea. It is a good idea, but to tell people you're going to have to buy snow tires, and that's the end of it.
When I was in the legislature, we had 2,000 bills come before the legislature. I think this year it's 2,000 or 2,200. When we do this, when these kinds of bills come forward, it just makes a mockery of the legislature. What happens, unfortunately, is that every legislator is painted with, what are you trying to do? Force me to buy snow tires. I remember back when all of us were made the butt of a joke when former Representative Joe Brooks was putting in the butt bill. And that was all your cigarette butts would have to be collected in order to get 5-cent deposit, just like you do with soft drinks. And that fell on deaf ears. It was a bit of a joke. It made all of us in the legislature a bit of a joke for some time. They have serious problems up there. Let's get to those problems first.
What do you think?
I think you had way too much fun structuring these questions for us this morning.
Too much time on my hands.
This is exactly what John has said. Every legislator has the right, during open season, so to speak, to put in any bill of any title that they want, and this is why you see bills like this being introduced. They're not going anywhere, and it creates fodder for those who want to criticize the way government operates.
In his Senate committee hearing this week, the new DOT commissioner admitted he has to find money for infrastructure in this state. Legislators don't want it to have to keep coming up with $100 million a year out of the general fund. State Senator Bill Diamond says raising the gas taxes out, you'd have to raise it at least 20 cents per gallon. Phil, do you think, what would Mainers find suitable here to make up this money? Is it a mileage charge that some have discussed? Is it more tolls? Is there an answer?
Well, I think that begs the question that needs a full debate and some creativity put around it. For every vehicle that's electric or more fuel efficient, right, they're using their tires are on the roads, but they're not paying enough to sustain it. I think we have to be creative in terms of, does it make sense to have toll roads in certain areas so that we know, like the main turnpike is maintained to a standard that you can count on. Bonding beyond just the potholes, if you will, and those sorts of things need to be addressed in a fashion that we can all look towards the horizon.
It's a huge problem, and it never goes away.
It doesn't, yet infrastructure is important for economic development. If we don't have our infrastructure in place, or we don't have it up to quite the right standards necessary, businesses won't come here. And yet we have a problem, because infrastructure now also includes broadband. It includes many other things that aren't yet being taken care of. So there's a list of priorities. And I would say that Bruce Van Oat, who has been the deputy commissioner for a long time and then went to the Turnpike, now back as commissioner, he has, I think, a sense of how to do this. It's going to take a combination of many things. An increase in the gas tax, probably more tolls to be paid by more users. And I think you're going to see us move, as you described it, to a user fee when you use the roads, and I think that would be more appropriate than a general tax that would come out of the state revenues.
All right, lots more to talk about this morning on Political Brew. We'll do that in the next hour. News Center's back after this.